views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
Coming up, the midterm elections in 2018 showed a remarkable wave of women running for office. Many made history as they defeated long-standing political figures. On this edition, we focus on how women will shape our country and the society in the months and year to come. Plus, the MeToo movement has allowed many women to speak up about being victims of sexual assaults. But how are we still failing to protect women and girls as a country? All that and a whole lot more is going to be delved into today on this edition of Perspectives with yours truly, Daren Jaime.
What's on your mind?
Let 'em know.
What's on your mind? What's on your mind?
Let 'em know. Anything relevant to life, you bring it to the table. Whether you make a move solo or a movement with a stable. No fables, you speak on your decisions. Cause in the long run, it's your voice, your views, your vision. Keeping it real with many messages for you to know. This ain't radio, but DJ runs the show. Entertainment, he rocks it. Politics, he locks it. The host with the most would handle any topic. Don't forget to share your perspective which shines a light. Cause it might make a difference in someone else's life.
Make a difference.
What's your perspective?
Express what's in your heart and your mind. Share your perspective.
What's your perspective? Let 'em know.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Perspectives. I am Daren Jaime, and of course, we thank you for watching. You can tune in every week here on BronxNet's Channel 67. If that's not enough, we're on Verizon Files Channel 33, or you can check us out on the web at bronxnet.org. And for those of you that are social media, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. And for those who want to do Facebook, you have a professional page, Daren C. Jaime. You can get some inspiration and some other things out there on Instagram as well as Facebook. But coming up on this edition of Perspectives, we go front and center talking about the issue of women in politics. And the reason why it's an issue is because there's some people who are just offended by it. A lot of people are wondering, how did so many women rise up in the political scene, particularly after the year 2018's midterm elections? Well, we've got a very special guest to unpack that and then talk a little bit about the MeToo movement. She's considered a bridge builder and spent many years of her life establishing some much-needed strategic partnerships in neighborhoods across New York City. She's the founder, or I should say the co-founder of the Bronx Clergy Roundtable, the largest faith-based coalition boasting approximately 500 members and partners. And she's also the president of the Bronx Clergy Criminal Justice Roundtable. And if that's not enough hats to wear, yes, she is the chair of the New York City Faith-Based Coalition Against Human Trafficking and Domestic Violence, who we're talking about my sister and friend, the Rev Que English, who joins us here on the show.
How
Good
are
to have you.
Good to see you, Daren. Good to be back
Good
again.
to be back.
Yes.
Multiple hats we wear.
Yeah, multiple hats, but it's all good. You know, it's all about fighting injustices. It's all about seeing our children, our women, our girls, our boys, our men have a fair trial at life and,
Right.
you know, so it's all about justice. That's what this is about.
Advocacy takes you into a lot of different arenas.
It really does. It really does.
And we're grateful to have you here with us. And, I want to talk a little bit about what we talked about in the intro.
Yeah.
I'll first start about women in politics. We talk here in the Bronx, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. You've got Alexandria Biaggi on the state side. You've got my good friend Ayanna Pressley out there in Boston. She's now in Congress. And an insurgence, if you will, of women on the political role, not saying that they haven't been there, but actually being elected. What are we seeing?
What we're seeing is the fact that we have to go to federal, boy. We got to hang out in D.C. for just a minute. I mean, that literally woke up the sleeping giant. That's what happened as a result of having the president that we have, the kind of president that we have, and how we view him as women, okay? And for us, anti-woman, he comes across extremely violent against women in his tone, in his conversations, and how he addresses and how he feels about it. And we're saying, this is who's leading our country? And then you have the silence of the men that's aligned alongside of him, just silent partners. Whether, for us, silence is you're actually putting your stamp of approval on the way he stands on these issues. And as a result of that, we just started saying, wait a minute, enough is enough. And then when you look at what's happening, you talked about, some of the things, I know we'll talk about it later with the Me Too, but politically, that has influenced that as well. So we're looking at, women saying, wait a minute, I know I'm better than this. I've never been, I wasn't created to be under anyone's feet. to be stepped on, to be abused emotionally and mentally, physically. And as a result of that, if we don't do something about it ourselves, nothing will be done. And so now we're going to find people rising up in all different sectors. We're talking about government, but you're talking about entrepreneurship and in businesses and just women taking their rightful places.
And that's what I'm talking about. How does it shape America? Because you talked about it's more than just being political. It's really on a more global scale.
It is, because we know we have always been looked at, as less than, right? And so we have to use our voice now and to influence the direction or the steering of this ship of our nation. And we haven't done that in the past. And even if you think about the MeToo woman, the MeToo movement, a lot of people say, hey, a lot of these women that's coming forward, they're not telling the truth, they're lying, they make it up. And then others that are telling the truth, they sort of like put a damper on it. But if you look at the whole stats, it doesn't change the stats, Daren. We're still 1 in 5 women. We're still 1 in 71 men. We're still 91% of that whole piece women. So it doesn't matter that you have the few that may be trying to put a damper on it by maybe coming across with some false stories. Because I'm not going to say that everyone that's come forth is telling the truth. But what I am going to say, you can't change the stats. You can't change the facts. And the reason why that we have this feeling of we got to say something, we got to do something, is because of what's being perpetrated in government. That has really
so
been the
numerical
idea.
Disparity definitely, it definitely exists. But when we talk about the MeToo movement, it's something that has risen now to take the place of how we shape America. You have to have conversations. And when we talk about sexual harassment in the workplace, we can look here. We've seen, guys who work similar jobs as I, who have had to come off the air, athletes who cannot get jobs now. There is this rising awareness, first of all, sexual harassment in the workplace and domestic violence. Do you think right now that America is really paying attention?
Whether America is paying attention, or should I say we're posturing ourselves so they have to pay attention. I feel like that's what's happening with women in America. We're posturing ourselves where we're a force to be reckoned with. And yes, we are shaping the narrative right now because we've been silent too long. And it has been easy to be silent, Daren. When you're a victim, when you go through that type of trauma, it's not like you look to find who can you tell right away. Not all women can do that. And so they internalize it. And many times it's what happens to them as children. And if it happens to them as a child, and then it's repeated in the adulthood, they bury that trauma. And you know what they end up doing? Well, if you're African American or Hispanic, you may not find the counseling because your mama and your daddy may not have known to even think to bring you to counseling. If you're raised up in a certain impoverished neighborhoods or in the projects or wherever you are in the Bronx or New York City, that may not have been the avenue for you as an outlet. But then there are those that have that avenue and they can get counseling. But when you think about the trauma that's associated with it, it's unfair. What I think that's been unfair to these victims is the statement that says, why didn't you come out sooner?
And we heard that in Brett Kavanaugh, Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh's confirmation.
That is one of the most ridiculous statements that can be made. You don't come out sooner because you can't come out sooner. Because the trauma that you've had to endure has caused oppression, depression, and sometimes led to suicide. It's hard for you to cope. We're talking about severe PTSD. We're talking about severe mental health issues. And you're not in my shoes, man, that have literally put that on us. You're not in my shoes. So you can't tell me what I can handle, what I can't handle, when I need to come out and when I don't need to come out.
What does the Kavanaugh nomination mean? Because when we saw, a victim, literally, who had been put through the ringer, literally, questioned, and it seems as though for future victims who want to be able to come forward, the public scrutiny, was so much so that made, that watching this says, maybe I don't say anything because if this is what happens to her, then it's what's going to happen
Absolutely.
to me.
However, there's two sides to that coin. I would have to say, yes, I totally agree. There are going to be some that will never come out as a result of her stepping out. And literally, the light, I'm talking about every nook and cranny of her light was put under a flashlight. And when you look at who was confirmed, and I thought about what kind of justice can we have. I'm hoping that we can overturn it. I'm hoping we can find something to get that boy off the bench. I'm hoping that somewhere along the line we can do that. I really am. But in lieu of that, we're seeing our ladies take positions right there in our government that's going to help fight for that. But you're right, there are those that are going to retreat that will never come out because we don't want the scrutiny. But what has to happen, how we're infecting this culture, we're talking about the culture. That's what we're talking. We're talking about it has to be a cultural shift in our thinking about women and gender-based violence, a cultural shift in that it's not okay to lay your hands on me. It's not okay to talk to me any kind of way. It's not okay to emotionally abuse us. So what do we have to do? We have to empower women. MeToo Movement has come to empower the voices of women. And sometimes we have to carry them until they can speak for themselves.
Sexual trafficking and human trafficking are two major issues, and they go front and center. After the break, we bring that up with Rev Que English, who is really on the front line for that. We're talking about women's rights. We have to talk about sexual trafficking. We have to talk about human trafficking. Be right back in a few.
Maybe you can make retirement happen. After all, you made this vacation happen.
Double points with every purchase?
Cleverly merging promotions,
I love it.
cross-referencing travel sites, and booking all your flights with those.
Vouchers. I got us bumped.
They were like, oh. But now they're like, aloha. You aced this vacation. Now get the tips you need to get on track at aceyourretirement.org.
And we are back here on Perspectives. Daren Jaime here with you, and we were talking just a little bit before the break about the issue of sexual trafficking, human trafficking. When we talk about rights and women's rights, many times you find that women are on the end, and men are included, and boys are included in this too, but a large number, particularly here in the New York City area, of women have been, they come up missing, and only to find out they've been involved in sexual and human trafficking. Something that's very near and dear to you.
It is very near and dear to me, and I think it goes back being near and dear to me from just some of the things like, that I've experienced in my own lifetime, growing up in the projects, growing up in NYCHA, growing up with a household that was very ridden with a lot of the drugs and a lot of the alcohol abuse, and the father that was suffering as a result of being in the war, etc. And me and myself experiencing some trauma in the sexual assault area before I was even 18. That's why when they say 1 in 4 girls, right? And when that happened, it was like business as usual. The next day I went to school, no one else talked about it again. There was no counseling, there was no help. So when you think about it, even Daren, right now, let me just say this, we have a bill right now in the state that we're trying to pass to allow kids more time to come out against their perpetrator, all right? So if you're abused as a child, don't give me 5, 10, 15 years. You're gonna have to give me a little bit more time because all of that stuff may not come up till much, much later in life, right? And so we're really pushing to pass that bill, and I'm hopefully with the way the Democrats are taking over the Senate now, that we can see this bill pass. So that's a very, very important bill to the Child Abuse Protection Act. And so, with that in mind, that leads into my conversation with the trafficking piece. And when you think about, the trafficking, Daren, it has so many tentacles. It has so many tentacles, and it has not gone down.
Are we doing better? Are we doing enough to protect?
Let me tell you what we're doing better. We're doing better by way of city agencies stepping up to the plate and really getting educated and getting trained, and NYPD having units dedicated to trafficking, ACS having entities dedicated to trafficking, MOCJ having an interest in Mayor's Office of Criminal Justice. So what you're seeing is that the city agencies are taking a step up to create more education, awareness. I convene Traffic Free NYC. I bring together all the city agencies, all the service providers, along with our survivors and it's the only coalition that exists in New York to combat human trafficking alone and strategize around those issues. And what we're seeing in that is that we still have the problems. Like the number one problem in this whole area is we don't have enough housing. We don't have enough housing for those victims. We need more prevention and intervention in our schools because the highest population, Daren, are our 11 to 15-year-olds. Those are the ones that's suffering. Right. But the real culprit, it's not the stranger on the street. It's the neighbor they know. It's the friend they know.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So my girl's daughter was 12 years old right here in Co-op City, and her 12-year-old friend was the facilitator, and her mother was the trafficker. And so when you look at that, that's how this stuff is moving around. And the real big culprit is the internet, which is what I'm calling the dark net. But I do have to give a victory report right now, is that Speaker Carl Hastie, he did pass a few months ago the End Child Sex Trafficking Act, which is what we've been advocating for. And I believe we talked about it the last time we were on the show. And that is, now children do not have to prove coercion before prosecuting the serial rapist or the pimp. Right. Back in the day, if you were 12 years old, you have to prove to us, come back to court, get re-victimized, and you prove that you were forced into it. Now that's not the case. So we're making strides. We're making strides in the state level. We passed 3 key bills. Speaker Carl Hastie has been the champion of the first bill and the second and the third, and first and second, I'm sorry, and the third bill we passed was in the federal level. So we are making strides. However, because it has the mushroom effect, the effect to just multiply through social media, that's the hard part to keep our hands on, because it has too many tentacles. You tear down one site, 10 more pop up. Right? And so it's a real dark net. It's what we refer to as the dark net. Those are the places we're having problem in. Once we get sound curriculum in our schools, which is what we're advocating for, we need curriculum to train the teachers, the social workers, the deans, principal. They need training. It needs to be centralized. It needs to be uniformed. We need to have curriculum for our kids so they can protect themselves. These are things that are not in place.
Yeah, so I was at dinner not too long ago, and we were at the dinner conversation, we had the conversation about sexual trafficking, human trafficking, and the sentiment around the table was, it's not that bad. We don't know. It's a minor problem, but it's not a really. Well,
40 million is a minor problem. 75% women, 25% children. We're talking 10 million children. We're talking 100,000 U.S. born children. We're talking thousands right here in New York City. We don't even have accurate data yet. It is a huge problem. And when we're talking about these U.S. born children, 100,000, that's nothing to sneeze at. U.S., not third world country. When we're talking about 75%, 30 million women. And this is just reported, Daren. These aren't like bona fide numbers because not everybody's going to report. Due to immigration issues, due to fear of deportation. In New York City, we have the problems with our, massage parlors, and that's real prevalent in massage parlors, abandoned buildings, you name it, foster care system. We had to shut down 2 foster care systems, 2 foster care centers as a result of them being turned into human trafficking rings. So everyone is doing what they can. We need to do more. It's going to take more training. It's going to take more shift in the culture of thinking. Everyone is not only a victim, but we also have the perpetrators that can come from every spectrum, from the mom and pa, from the cousins, to NYPD, to ACS workers, to our church workers. Anybody can be the culprit of being a sex buyer or trafficker.
All right, let's take a quick break, come back with more with Rev Que English. We will wrap it up with her in our final segment, but stay with us. We got more perspectives coming up right after this. And we are back here on Perspectives, continue our conversation with the Rev Que English, we talked about women in politics, we talked about women in the country, we talked about sexual trafficking, human trafficking, and particularly here in New York City, we have to stay close to this issue because it becomes more and more prevalent right here with our children.
It really does. And you know, the work that we do, Not On My Watch, it's my organization. I'm CEO, founder of Not On My Watch. We're an education and training and advocacy arm around these issues. And so when we brought in the whole city agencies, et cetera, we went to the mayor. We said, you know, Mr. Mayor, we really do need an office dedicated to combat human trafficking because it has been an oversight or it has not been any centralized leadership. And so Traffic Free NYC, which I convened, as I mentioned, with the agencies, we were able to get a breakthrough. And this year, they gave an additional $1 million to the office that has now changed its name in our favor to the Office to End Domestic and Gender-Based Violence, which now includes human trafficking. So now they have $1 million annually dedicated just to combat human trafficking because they realize how much of a problem it is right here in New York City. When you think about it, we have children. You think about our 10-year-old girl. You think about our 9-year-old boy. You know, what they're being subjected to on a daily basis. And some of these girls and boys that are led into what they're called trap houses, one way in and one way out, you know, and have been subjected to this ongoing rape. And then you're looking now to hearing about the gang now turning to trafficking girls, gang members, because they're finding they're making more money. You sell a gun once, you sell a girl 20 some odd times in one day. You sell drugs once, but you can keep selling that same girl over and over and over again. That's what we're dealing with, and that's what the reality is. That's why I'm so excited about January. That's our National Human Trafficking Awareness Month, and that's when we're going to be hitting the pavement, Daren, from concerts to having a Celebrating Survivors breakfast, a Celebrating Survivors concert. We're going to have educational forums throughout our city. We plan to have the most impactful time with everyone that's anybody in this work that is going to be doing something, saying something, helping somebody in the effort to create that avenue of don't be afraid to come forward. We can help you. We now have a dedicated hotline in New York City to human trafficking. We're far from where we need to be.
So for people who want more information, how do they tap in?
Call 646-564-6723, 646-564-6723. They can email us at info@shnintl.org. They can do that. They can just reach out. They can tap into volunteer. They can tap in to be educated. We have trainings throughout the entire month. Actually, we train throughout the entire year. We trained Cornell Hospital, their personnel, from social workers to NYU to Hunter College to just regular everyday people that just want to make a difference in their society. Now is the time. Because you know what else we need to know, Daren, is that you know who topped the charts? It's our black and brown girls. When we think about the Bronx, when we think about what's happening right here, it's happening to our black and brown girl. We can't turn a blind eye to this. Right. It is not the Caucasian girl on holiday in Europe as Taken would have us believe. It's happening right in our backyard. It could be happening right next door to you and you don't even know it. It can be happening to the child that you're educating, sitting in that chair that can't give you eye contact, that comes in looking a little roughed up, that can't speak to you, that has a truancy problem. It can be happening right under your nose and you don't even know it. We've got to do something. And we got to do it now.
Yeah, so we want you to get involved. If you want to find out more information, please call that number. Please get in touch. As we said, January, a very special month. Got to bring it back a little bit later on. Keep talking about this issue because it's important. I think that when we look at where we are with our women, our children, particularly in New York City, there's a lot of work that still needs to be done. And certainly when it comes to human trafficking, sexual trafficking, enough is not enough.
No, you're right.
And we continue to hear the horror stories. And, and I know because, I'm between here and upstate.
Yes.
And a lot of times you have them, they start downstate, they're trafficked upstate.
Yes.
And you don't get anything until, you know, something bad happens, and that's when you find out the real trail.
Yeah.
So hopefully we can do our part and do our due diligence.
I think we can make a difference, Daren.
We already,
and
yeah.
we're already making a difference. I really think this is a cultural change, a transformation of our thinking and our mindset toward women and girls, helping our boys, teaching them how to become men, how to treat women at an early age. So it's not just about intervention. We need a lot more when it comes to the prevention part, so we can avoid seeing what we're seeing today.
Definitely. Rev Que English, our guest. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Daren, for having me.
Good to have you. Rev Que English here, talking all about these women issues, all the way from politics to the MeToo movement to human trafficking to sex trafficking, all very prevalent issues, and that's what we discussed here today on Perspectives. We want to thank you for watching. Now, if you want to stay tuned, Perspectives airs every week here on Bronx's Channel 67, Verizon Files Channel 33, and of course on the World Wide Web. For all of us here in the set of Perspectives, thank you for watching. I'm Daren Jaime. Until next time we meet, stay safe, God bless, and share your perspective with somebody else. You just don't know. It might make a difference in someone else's life. Be good.
Forget to share your perspective, which shines a light, because it might make a difference in someone else's life.
Make a difference.
What's your perspective?
Express what's in your heart and your mind. Share your perspective.
What's your perspective? Let them know.
What's on your mind?
Let 'em know.
Express what's on your mind. What's on your mind?
Let 'em know. Anything.
$145/92.
180 over 111.
182 over 100. And I had a heart attack and a cardiac arrest, and then a stroke.
This is what high blood pressure looks like. You might not feel its symptoms, but the results from a heart attack or stroke are far from invisible or silent.
My memory is shot.
When I woke up, I couldn't speak.
I can't button up a shirt. I can't run.
I've had to learn to swallow again.
That's the only moments that I have. And I'm 33, so I never see this coming.
If I would have followed a treatment plan, I would not be in this situation.
Had I done this, had I done that, hell, I messed up.
Get back on your plan, or talk with your doctor to create an exercise, diet, and medication plan that works for you. Go to loweryourhbp.org.
Head to toe, everything's changed. Head to toe.
We are together. And for the last 20 years, we have been building on a vision to share our views, our voices on our channels. We are the Bronx. We are BronxNet.